Welcome to our first webinar for the Detox Challenge. Really a pleasure to have you here, whether you're live or you're listening from the recording. So we are going to be using these webinars to address any questions that you have as we go through the program. And this is a very pivotal webinar, as you can imagine, because today is day one of the detox. And I'm sure that you've got lots of questions. In fact, I know you do because I've been looking at the Facebook page, and it's pretty evident that we need clarification on certain things. So I put out the question to all of you what you wanted to talk about today. And the thing that surfaced was really focusing on the food plan and making sure that everybody knows what they need to be eating. So that's what we're going to cover in this webinar. So we're going to make it very Q&A. I'm actually going to take you through the Elimination Diet Food Plan together with Dr. Bob Roundtree and Barb Schultz. So let me just introduce Dr. Roundtree. So these are two of my great, big, huge friends within the functional medicine community. I love them both, and in fact, I just thought it was such a great one-two punch to have both of them here in this webinar with us today. Bob is a longtime functional medicine doc, has done a lot with the whole process of detox, and in fact, he and I both teach on the detox module for the Institute for Functional Medicine. So he's done a tremendous amount in terms of his understanding of toxicity. He has great laboratory knowledge of toxins as they present in the body. And he's super passionate about diet, lifestyle, and extremely knowledgeable about dietary supplements. So welcome, Bob, to the webinar.
Hi. Hi, it's great to be here.
All right, and thank you for being here. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Barb will be joining us. I know that she's probably earnestly trying to get in, and so she will be joining us. I know that she has some avid interest in sharing with you, talking about the Elimination Diet Food Plan. She was part of the team that created this food plan. So the way that things work at IFM, which I really appreciate the style, is we have teams that work on the individual functional nutrition modules. And so it's really a group effort. Bob has weighed in. Barb has actually led the Elimination Diet Food Plan. I consider Barb one of my role models, mentors, and teachers. You know, she was really the person that taught me within the Functional Medicine Research Center about how to use the elimination diet. This was like 10 years ago, you know, just working with her. And she's a wealth of knowledge and very vibrant and bubbly and passionate about this as well. So we've got three passionate people here to talk with you about your questions, so it's going to be fun. So let me just cover some logistics about the program, because I know that some of you have been a little bit confused, and I apologize that for some of you this did not go off without a hitch. So just to be clear, the program, the Detox Challenge, covers these materials. Number one, the dietary guidebook, and that's what we're going to go into in depth right here, the tracking journal. And these two documents, if you do not have them, they are on the Facebook page under Files. And then you would have also received them via the membership page, which you received a login and password to in your welcome email. So if you don't have that email for some reason, just look at the Facebook page. We've got them there. And if you don't have either, if you're not on Facebook and you don't have the email, email us at info@foodandspirit.com. and we'll get those out to you. But it would be nice to have everything right there on Facebook as we do, and just go in, tap in, and download the materials as you see fit. Now, some people have issues, whether it's getting the emails or downloading from Facebook, and there can be a number of reasons why that is. It's really a small fraction of you. But what you do want to do is check your spam folder, check your junk email box, just to see if it landed there. I mean, here I am, you know, doing the Detox Challenge, and my emails were in my junk mail folder. So that's not so good. So it can easily happen, even to the people that are involved in this program. So just check there, and you know, we're here to help you. We've got a whole team, so no worry, no hurry. We're here to make sure that you have everything that you need. But I think that there were some questions about what people actually needed to get started. Okay, so then the other thing is the daily audio recordings. So you will also note that at the bottom of your e-blast that you get every day with a certain theme, that you will have a recording which is an interview with some guest. If you don't have the email again for some reason, those audio recordings will be on the Facebook page. You can easily download them. All right, so I just wanted to make that clear because we had received some emails about what are all the constituents of the program? Do I have everything to get going? And I really appreciate that because you're very diligent, very motivated, and we just want to let you know that, yes, you do have everything right there at your fingertips. All right, so one thing that I want to be clear on is to be sure that you have the Detox Challenge calendar. This is going to guide you from day to day on the topics, the themes that we'll be talking about on the Facebook page. So you can see that here we are on Monday, September 8th, which is highlighted in yellow. Every yellow day is a call day, meaning a webinar day, just like we're having right now. So this is the first day of the detox, and then you can see that every day we're going to be talking about something in particular. So this document is contained within your tools, so all you can do is you can print it off if you'd like and just put it on your refrigerator or somewhere close by so that you're tracking with everything that we're doing. Okay, so again, the dietary guidebook, the tracking journal, these are your two major tools to guide you through the process, and you already know that. So within the dietary guidebook, one of the things that you will see in there is, why do we do the elimination diet? You know, why do we even go through this process of what we would call a detox? And of course, detox may mean certain things to certain people. The way that we're framing it up here with the elimination diet is removing potential food triggers that can cause inflammation and the immune cascade. Bob, why don't you weigh in here on your take on the elimination diet as it relates to these different features that are noted on the slide? There might be something that you want to specifically address, maybe even how you've used this with patients, maybe about toxic burden, and just what have you seen in your private practice?
Well, I think what you just said is really the key, that this diet is about lowering the total toxic load. And it may be already obvious or clear to participants, but sometimes when you hear the term elimination diet, you think in terms of allergy. And that's not really what this diet is about. We do have elimination diets for people who have allergic reactions, but this is more about eliminating things that are bad for you or potentially reactive for you. So I think it's important to point that out, because the emphasis here is really on getting rid of processed foods and caffeine, alcohol, things like that that may, I guess you could say, clog up the system, so that you can take the load off the liver, take the load off the gut, and kind of free the body up to help move toxins through.
Beautiful.
So I do use this. I've used a similar version of this in my practice for 25 years, I think, and this does a really nice job of spelling out what the important details are.
Great. All right, so let's move on, and I know that Barb is now on the line. So Barb, be ready to unmute yourself to chime in as we start going through the different food categories. We're going to take a tour through each of them, so in case people have questions, we're going to address them. So everybody, you've got within the dietary guidebook the table of contents, and probably I would say the most important part of this booklet is the actual food plan, which is contained on pages 4 and 5. What I have recommended to people is to print off these pages. You can even put it all on one sheet, just double-sided, and have this at your fingertips wherever you go. So have it on your refrigerator, put it in your purse, your backpack, your notebook, whatever you do, wherever you go, it might be good to have this on you, even if it's in your back pocket. Because you might be at a restaurant or you might be in a situation where you have to figure out what to eat, and unless you have this in front of you, it might be difficult to remember everything. So the way to make this successful, in part, is to know what foods that you need to be eating during this 21-day period. So again, pages 4 to 5 in your dietary guidebook. So essentially what we're looking at through, as Bob mentioned, through the elimination diet food plan is removing those food triggers, and here they're listed just globally. And then what are the foods that we focus on? For some of you, you may want to focus more on what do I take out. Others of you like a more, well, you like an approach where you just say, well, just tell me what to eat. So if it's just tell me what to eat, what I would say is really focusing here on the blue part, the fruits, healthy oils, lean meats, legumes, nuts, seeds, vegetables, and non-gluten whole grains. And we're going to take you through each of those categories. And the way I'd like to do this is I'm going to have each category up on the screen, And I have reviewed the Facebook page in depth. I know some of your questions. So with Bob and Barb on the line here, I want us to chime in and answer your questions as we go. And then we will take questions broadly from all of you towards the end. We're going to reserve some time, probably 15 minutes, if not more, at the very end to make sure that we're getting all of the loose end questions. So again, this is the Elimination Diet Food Plan. This is page 4. This is page 5. So when people say, what should I be eating? That's what you have on those 2 pages, everything you need to be eating. And often what I would tell patients is, if it's not on there, that means no eating it. So it just makes it easier for you. So Bob and Barb, do we have you now? Okay. So let's focus on protein. Protein is important, of course, for just metabolism in general and making sure that toxins are released from the body. So there have been a number of questions about this category, Bob. So a lot of questions around meat. They're asking, why can't we have grass-fed meat? We've got some people that are vegetarian and are just having questions about that. We also had some questions about whether or not there's a certain protein powder to include. So we have addressed a number of these things on the Facebook page already, but I was just wanting us to kind of review this generally. First of all, there are no, I know that this question came through on the Facebook page about servings. Do you have to have a certain amount of servings per day? And in general, what we say is that this is not a calorically restricted plan, so it's not like you have to have a certain amount of proteins per day. This is just, if you're working with a healthcare practitioner who is advising you in that direction, you have the capability to do that if you so choose. So Bob, what are your thoughts about some of these animal proteins and plant proteins that we have listed here? Any comments or things that you've noted with your patients? And maybe you want to address the meat question too?
I just want to clarify. I mean, we're not, my understanding is we're not saying to avoid meat. We're saying to avoid, that you can eat grass-fed, organically grown meats, and I think that's really the issue. It's how the meat is raised. I mean, this is what we say right at the top. So, you know, I think a little red meat is okay for some people. And why grass-fed? Just because it's a cleaner form of meat, and you have more, you're going to have more of the omega-3 fats that are anti-inflammatory in those types of meats. So I would clarify that. The other question that's come up a lot for me is, you know, why are you telling people to avoid scallops, which are, you know, in the part of the shellfish group, when scallops are actually one of the cleanest meats you can eat because they don't have any fat. And, you know, so that brings up the whole issue about the fat being inflammatory. And I know there's a lot of new information out about ketogenic diets and how fat wasn't as bad as we thought. Well, it really depends on the source of the fat, and that kind of gets to the core of what I'm talking about here, is maybe fat isn't as bad, you know, as we have made it out to be in the last 20 years, but you still have to distinguish between fat, saturated or not, that comes from an organic source versus a non-organic source, because fat is where organic toxins, persistent organic pollutants, that's where it accumulates.
Mm-hmm.
So,
right.
You know, there's a difference between organically raised cows and the milk that comes from those cows versus the standard variety that you're going to get in a grocery store, because we know that you're going to concentrate all kinds of persistent organic pollutants. So that's really the issue for me about the meats, is more the type of fat that's in the meat, how the animal was raised, and how it was prepared. The other thing, how it's prepared. So the canned meats, you know, clearly a no-no. Somebody had put in a question earlier about canned foods, and you definitely want to avoid canned foods on this diet because of the bisphenol A that's been shown to leach out from the lining of the canned foods.
Right. Barb, do we have you now?
Yes, I was having problems getting my mic unmuted. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Hi,
Did
Barb.
you want to chime in briefly on?
Well, I wanted to clarify something about, I know that the scallops have some benefit, but originally we had eliminated all shellfish from this particular dietary program mostly because shellfish are bottom feeders in the ocean, and so you really don't know how clean they are, even though scallops are supposed to be a really good fish. So that was just one aspect. And I think as we find out when we talk to all different practitioners, everybody has a different opinion on what should be eliminated and what should be included. So I think that there's many different ways of proceeding on an elimination diet. This is just the way that IFM has decided to do it. That doesn't mean that anything else, any other method of doing an elimination diet is wrong. We've had very good results doing it this way. Other people have had good results doing it another way. So I think that's one way of looking at it. And also, the grass-fed meat thing is really important because some people are really sensitive to the corn that the beef and other animals are being fed. So that's another reason why grass-fed meat is important here.
Yeah, exactly. So I would like to draw everybody's attention to the top in blue where it says lean, free-range, grass-fed, organically grown meats. And I know that some of you had emailed us and said that you were surprised to see any meat. But again, this is a very flexible program. So for people that are doing meat, there are choices. For people that decide not to do meat for various reasons, there are also plant derivative type sources here as well. So let's move on to the next category. I want to be sure that
can I comment?
Yeah.
So again, when people think about elimination diet, they have a certain idea about what it should be. You know, it's only rutabagas and brown rice, but that's not. This is a diet about cleaning yourself out. It's a clean living diet, and it's about lowering your total toxic load.
Right.
So I mean, back to the scallop issue. One thing that we've been concerned about is scallops do contain a lot of arsenic. It's organic arsenic, which supposedly isn't bad for you, but you know, if you have somebody who comes in that's got high levels of arsenic and you're trying to lower it, then it potentially confuses things if you're telling them to eat a food that does have a lot of arsenic in it. So I think that speaks to the bigger issue of how can you lower the total toxic load. Yeah.
Hence, not eating from cans whenever possible, right? You want to be sure that you're making the highest choices.
Yep.
So let's, we do have a number of categories, and I do want to get to everybody's questions because that's why they're on the line. So let's just move through these just a little bit quicker, just being sure that we're answering some relevant questions for people. Another category is legumes, and there are a number of choices here, except for soybean products, because soy, and again, we have mentioned this on the Facebook page, that what we're doing with this is eliminating the top 8 allergens, the classic allergens, right? And soy happens to be one of those, just like shellfish. So here we've got other choices for those of you who are wishing to follow this in more of a vegetarian way. So I don't think that there were any specific questions, but Bob, Barb, anything you want to chime in as to anything people would need to know here that you think is relevant?
Well, the number one question to ask is how well people digest legumes, because some people just don't do that well. You know, they don't have the enzymes. And so I often will exclude legumes for people who are also complaining of a lot of gas and bloating.
One thing that people can do is avoid canned legumes and staying away from the BPA, and cook the legumes from scratch, which I know does take longer. But if you put in a piece of wakame seaweed in with, or kombu seaweed in with the cooking water, that seems to degas the beans a great deal.
Another thing that helps with degassing is cumin, C-U-M-I-N. It's a spice that's probably in your spice rack right now in your kitchen.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Helps me every time.
Nice.
And also rinsing. If you are happening to eat food from cans, you know, beans from cans, and this is just something you can't avoid, making sure that you rinse them really well to get a lot of the raffinose and a lot of those non-digestible carbohydrates, which is in that goopy, mucusy-like stuff around the beans, off, because that leads to a lot of the bloating and a lot of the issues, especially for people with a lot of gut dysfunction and bloating already.
And regarding the cans, also the Eden brand has no BPA in the cans.
Right. The only thing we don't know is what they substituted in place of the BPA.
True.
If it's BPS,
Yes.
that's not such a great thing. So
Yeah.
until I know more, I just want to, I'm going to have to make some time to call the company and ask them what they use. So let's
Good
talk
idea.
about dairy alternatives, because this is a big issue for many people, right? When we see dairy, when I was asking all of you, what is the food that you're going to miss most? Yes, coffee was high on that list, but dairy was also really high, milk products of various types, cheese. So I think that it's not always easy to make that transition into the elimination diet, but there are a number of great options here, right? So we've got coconut yogurt and kefir, and in fact, Barb and I were just having a discussion about this coconut kefir today. Barb, maybe just talk a little bit about the kefir.
Well, the kefir has prebiotic and probiotic benefits to it, and it's a little hard to find it unsweetened, but I did find the So Delicious brand having the vanilla and the plain be completely unsweetened, and the coconut yogurt is not actually called yogurt. I noticed it's being called a cultured product. So, and I think the taste of it is pretty darn good. I actually made homemade yogurt from coconut milk one day, and I have to say it was one of the best things I've ever tasted. It took a while. Yeah, it was a while to make, but it was really worth it to me.
Now, the only thing to note on the side of the alternate milks is that many of them tend to be sweetened, so you have to read the labels very carefully. A lot of the milks now are saying on the front unsweetened, so it makes it a lot easier for you, but just note that, Barb, I don't think I've ever found an unsweetened hazelnut milk unless I make it myself. Do you know about that in the market?
I think they all only sweeten with brown rice syrup. You can find it sweetened with brown rice syrup, but that's the best you can do. Hemp comes unsweetened, flax comes unsweetened, almond and coconut come unsweetened, but I'm not sure about hazelnut.
Yeah, and rice, I have seen some unsweetened ones
Yes.
as well. So, but you can also make your own nut milk.
For people who are leery of almond milk and don't think it's so great, if you've never tried Califia Farms, C-A-L-I-F-I-A, unsweetened almond milk, it is really a delight. In fact, once you start drinking it, you won't want to drink anything else.
Is it available everywhere?
I get it at Whole Foods. It comes in this very unusual shaped container that's kind of a jug, big at the bottom and small at the top. So it's pretty readily available, and it's just delicious. And a really clean product.
What?
Califia?
Califia Farms.
Okay.
I might also suggest, I know everybody's busy and they don't want to do too much extra, but I make my own almond milk, and it's amazing how quick it's made and how delicious it is. You just soak almonds overnight, then you drain them, and then you do need to have a high-power blender for this. And then you add 4 to 1 water to almonds. So I use 1 cup of almonds, 4 cups of water, and then you blend them in your power blender, and you strain it. Or sometimes if it's a real powerful blender, you might not need to strain it. And then I use it in my smoothies in the morning, and I use it in my coffee. And it's quite delicious. It doesn't taste anything like the box variety, and you're avoiding all of the gums and the carrageenan and so forth.
Yep. Okay. Let's move on to nuts and seeds, since we were just talking about almonds there. So all nuts and seeds are on this food plan unless you have a known allergy or intolerance to nuts and or seeds. That is a possibility. So the only ones that we take off this list are peanuts, but actually peanuts are a legume anyway. Many people think of them as a nut. So this gives you a lot of options. You can make the whole grain or the nut and seed granola that Bethany Hayes was talking about on the Facebook page. This gives you also some snack ideas. So it gives you some options here, also for smoothies that you make in the morning. Bob, Barb, anything you want to chime in here?
If your smoothie doesn't taste as nice as you like it, and you can try adding a couple teaspoons or a tablespoon of a nut butter, of your favorite nut butter, and it changes the whole flavor of the smoothie and adds some nice nutrients.
I wonder if, Barb, if IFM has an official position on roasted versus raw and salted versus unsalted nuts in general.
I'm not aware of an official position. I prefer to buy raw nuts and unsalted, but that's a personal preference.
Yeah, and I would say that raw nuts can give a lot of people a lot of digestive issues, and some light roasting or dehydrating might be good for those folks. I just happen to know many people where their digestive function is improved when they have them lightly roasted. So they don't have to be heavily oiled and salted, but the roasting seems to help with the breakdown a bit.
Yeah, my biggest concern is the oils they use when they roast them.
Yeah.
Right, a lot of the peanut oil and such. Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Does roasting increase the protein content? I had read that somewhere, but I wasn't sure.
Protein? Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that was a false read.
Well, I eat a huge number of nuts. I practically live off of them. They're my primary snack. And I find that if I eat raw nuts, I usually just eat a mixed nut combination with basically everything but peanuts, which I just get tired of. But I, eat a lot of Brazil nuts and almonds and cashews. And I find if I eat raw nuts day in, day out, it starts to get old. So I like the roasted, unsalted nuts, not roasted in any oil, just lightly roasted. And then that way it kind of mixes up the flavors.
And you know what else I've done, and you guys probably have done this as well, where you take nuts and you make your own oil mixture with spices. So I use a lot of turmeric, and sometimes I'll do cinnamon with almonds. And so you just put them in a mixing bowl, and you have the oil with the spices. You mix them around. Then you put them on a cookie sheet. Then you put them in the oven just for like 10 minutes, just a little bit to kind of seal it in.
Nice. I like that.
Okay, so let's move on to fats and oils, because there were a lot of questions on fats and oils on the page that I saw. So what we have here, it's pretty well laid out, and I think that the questions were mainly around butter and ghee. And so, yes, for the sake of trying to eliminate dairy in its entirety, we have taken off butter and ghee. And we know that ghee has some medicinal impacts for the gut, but again, we're just doing this exercise for 21 days to take away some of these potential food allergens. So, and here, too, the other thing I wanted to make a comment about was that we have the canned coconut milk. So, again, canned in general is less preferred than using the UHT container of the coconut milk, or even just the carton, the coconut milk itself. So I'm hearing if somebody can just mute. Yeah, somebody needs to mute. Okay, very good. So, Bob, any comments here on what are your favorite fats and oils as you look at this list? Which ones are you a big fan of? Do you use avocado oil?
I don't really. I like rice bran oil, to be honest. That's my number one oil. I have had a really hard time finding it in stores for reasons that completely baffle me. I think it's it has a low smoke point, so, it doesn't, or would you say a high smoke point? It doesn't smoke easily.
High,
High smoke point. It doesn't have antioxidants. It has a lot of antioxidants in it. It tastes really good. It's just, I can't say enough good things about it, but I have a heck of a hard time finding it, so I buy it on Amazon, and I usually get a gallon at a time.
Wow.
Because I can't find it in any local stores. But, in Japan, it's the number one cooking oil.
Yep. And it's high in tocotrienols and cough
absolutely.
And, yeah. And it's great for even moving fat through the liver. There are a number of studies on that showing how it helps with hepatic fat oxidation. So I like that you chose that one. I can't say enough
good things about it. Yep. It's just a relatively unknown oil in the U.S.
Barb, what's your favorite oil on this list? Did we lose Barb?
She's muted again. I would say my number two, while we're waiting for Barb, it would be grapeseed oil.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Because you can get
I like
really
coconut
good
oil.
organic grapeseed. Yeah.
Yeah, I like coconut oil, and I was able to find rice bran oil on my local health food store.
Oh.
And I also use avocado oil. Excuse me?
Maybe the West Coast is more enlightened than Colorado.
Well, I thought Colorado was quite enlightened, but the West Coast is definitely enlightened. I have to say that it would be hard for me to live anyplace else.
Well, that was a question we had on the Facebook page, which I thought was very good, that we need to be thinking about what is accessible to everybody. And I would say if on this list I had to choose what is available to everybody, whether you're in Virginia, Louisiana, Texas, Arizona, extra virgin olive oil, to be that great default for when you can't find all these specialty oils. Like avocado oil, that is really a specialty oil. I just recently tried it out. It's very tasty. It's also great for cooking, if that's
Costco has it.
Yeah, it's really getting out there. It's got a very similar profile to olive oil. It has a lot of the monounsaturated fats and some different phytochemicals. So anyway, if we're thinking throughout the world, what everybody has a lot of access to, and this might be, a little bit different. We've got people from South Africa and different parts of the world, so that might vary slightly. But extra virgin olive oil, you can't really deny the great effects that we've seen in the literature about it.
And you use that for cooking too, for sautéing?
What I like to do is just to steam food. Quite honestly, I use water as a cooking medium, and then once it's almost at its finishing point, then I seal it with some kind of oil. Then I'll bring in the extra virgin olive oil. And we had a great video from Dr. John Principe on this very thing. And in fact, if anybody has questions about that, I would say definitely Dr. Principe is on the Facebook page, and he has so much passion around olive oil. I'm sure he'd be glad to answer anything about that.
I find the biggest challenge with olive oil is to know what you're getting, because there's a lot of mixing that goes on. I just yesterday I had lunch with a guy who owns an olive ranch in Sicily, and the ranch is 3,000 years old.
Wow.
And he was saying, he said, we can't call it organic, but it's as organic as it gets, I mean, it has some kind of like specialty certification, but he said, you've got to be really careful about oils you buy in your local grocery store, because you have no idea where they're coming from, and that they tend to dilute it with oils that aren't even olive oil. So just very important to know the source of the oil that you're buying.
Yeah, and we did put Dr. Rick Mayfield's recommendations for olive oil on the Facebook page. We put some websites, and these are pretty reputable. We've tried them, and people have vetted them. So that might be a more reliable source. Okay, super. Let's move on to probably our favorite, vegetables, non-starchy ones. Look at this long list of opportunities and potential. So I'm not sure what else to say other than vegetables, vegetables. I mean, so many choices here, right? So many great combinations.
Many
Barb,
servings a day.
What's your favorite? Yeah, many servings a day. Barb, talk with us a little bit about some of the ways that you like to prepare vegetables. What makes it easy when you're going through an elimination diet like this? Should we cook them in bulk and then save them, store them, or is that going to degrade the nutrients?
I do. You have to be careful about things that are too old. So I like to cook for a couple of days. And so I'll either roast a bunch of vegetables, or I'll do a stir fry, or lately, because I've been feeling uncomfortable about cooking at higher heat, I've been doing what you suggested, is just sauteing in a little bit of water and then dressing them afterwards with olive oil. I do saute in coconut oil often. I've tried the rice bran oil, like Bob was just talking about, and the avocado oil too, but coconut is still my favorite, and it's okay at a higher smoke point than some of the other oils, just as rice bran oil is. So roasting vegetables, sauteing them, steaming them. I'll steam up a whole bunch of broccoli, only for a minute and a half, because you get the most benefit when you leave it undercooked. I'll steam a bunch of string beans, and then I'll make a salad out of it. I'll toss it with sliced onion and slivered garlic and some olive oil, and that will be my salad. and I will throw in other foods like some tiny diced white potatoes, not white, but the yellow or red potatoes, to make an Italian string bean salad. There's so many ways of cooking vegetables, and I also put vegetables in my smoothie every morning, so that's a slam dunk. You don't even know you're eating vegetables.
Bob, talk with us about cruciferous vegetables. Give us some of your passion for broccoli.
Broccoli. Well, all the cruciferous vegetables, to some degree, contain the same set of chemicals called glucosinolates. Broccoli just is the most studied, and broccoli sprouts in particular are very rich sources of these phytochemicals. Watercress is another really good source of these phytochemicals, although that's a little bit harder to find in your grocery store. But the claim to fame for glucosinolates is they stimulate the liver to eliminate toxins. And this was demonstrated very nicely in a study that was just done in China last year, where they gave a drink made from broccoli sprouts to people who lived in a very polluted area, and they measured their output of pollutants in their urine, and they found that there was a sustained effect. As soon as they started eating the broccoli sprouts, their excretion of these toxins increased dramatically, and it continued to stay high as long as they were eating the sprouts every day.
Wow.
So it's the real deal.
Good stuff. Okay, wonderful.
The other vegetable,
more of these.
I don't know much about phytochemicals in asparagus, but I recommend it a lot because people seem to digest it really well. It just seems to be a nice neutral vegetable for people who are not sure what they can eat because their gut's all messed up. They have dysbiosis. I find that most people can handle asparagus, and it's so easy to cook. You just lightly steam it for a few minutes.
Yep. And, it's also good for increasing glutathione in your body, and glutathione is one of the most used and most regarded of antioxidants, especially used by the liver. So when people are feeling low energy, having more glutathione is a good thing. So asparagus is really good for that.
Also, spinach, Deanna, we've all been taught that you shouldn't boil your vegetables. And spinach is the one vegetable that's not true for, because if you immerse your spinach just for a couple of minutes in boiling water, it deactivates the oxalic acid that binds the calcium. So instead of doing a light saute with olive oil and garlic, as I usually do the Italian way with spinach, I first dunk it in boiling water for a couple of minutes, and then you have to squeeze it dry, otherwise it's it's got a lot of water attached to it, and then I'll toss it with olive oil, and that's a good thing to know about.
That's great. Thank you for that. Okay,
Barb,
we just have a couple
are mushrooms on this program or not?
Yes, they are.
Yep, there they are. Here they are, right here. Mushrooms.
Okay, so you got the whole category because I was looking for shiitake. I have sauteed shiitake mushrooms with spinach a couple of times a week.
Oh, that's delicious.
I just love it with a little sauteed with a little bit of garlic. I find it amazing.
Nice.
All right, you two, we've got just a short window of time here of about 8 minutes to get through the rest of the categories, so let's streamline this a little bit.
Okay.
We've got starchy vegetables here, so I think that this has been pretty straightforward. Nobody has really had any questions on these, so I think that we can. The only thing I think that there was a question about was nightshades. So we do not take nightshades off of this plan initially, but if you know that you have sensitivities to nightshades like potato or tomato or eggplant, peppers, things within that class, then please remove them for yourself. And in fact, that applies to anything on this food plan. If you're sensitive to anything, please do not do it. This is just the universe of what we would like to see without a lot of the food triggers. So please tweak it to your body and other conditions that you might be working with.
I've been introducing family and friends to purple artisanal potatoes lately, and I find that people are initially a little put off. Why would I want to eat a purple potato? But once they realize that they're delicious and nutritious, they're really hard to beat.
Low glycemic.
Low glycemic. Yep.
Yep. All right, so fruits, this is another category, and people are really tapping into fruits because they're making smoothies. So we say, there was a question about citrus, so let's just tone in on that for a second. We say only to eliminate citrus if directed by your healthcare provider. Otherwise, we do have citrus on here. Some people are just a little bit more sensitive to citrus, but you have to gauge that for yourself. If you think that that might be a question for you, you might want to eliminate oranges, which are on here, and maybe even, typically we've only had oranges that have been taken off. Maybe grapefruit if you feel like you're sensitive to that as well. So don't think we had any other questions other than people using lots of fruits. And fruits can be helpful in quelling a lot of the sugar cravings. So Barb, that's something I learned from you back at the FMRC.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that? Because that was a question that we need to address about cravings in that first week of doing this plan.
Well, cravings are what make or break any kind of a dietary program. And so if you can keep your cravings under wraps, that's going to help you towards success. And the biggest problem is with sweet cravings. And so if you have perhaps a little more fruit than you might usually have, that will eventually help your cravings go away. And it would be helpful to have some protein along with your fruit. Berries have the least amount of craving potential because your blood sugar doesn't go up and down much with berries, and actually most fruits are not going to cause too many problems. Bananas and pineapples and papaya probably have the most potential for making your blood sugar go up, but the berries are the best, and just eat a little protein with them and have a variety, and then maybe after time goes on, if you're feeling a little bit more stable with your cravings, then just have less fruit. But there's no actual restriction on fruit.
Yep, very good. All right, very good guidance there. Let's move on to the next category, which I know that there's always lots of discussion around, and it's the gluten-free grains. I noticed that for breakfast this morning that some of you went straight away to gluten-free oats and blueberries, which was a really nice dish, and in fact that's part of the menu plan. By the way, nobody has to follow the menu plan that's set forth. It's just there as a guide. So if you choose and you need that structure, you can definitely do that, but it doesn't mean that everybody today would all be having oatmeal with blueberries for breakfast. It's just a gentle guideline of just giving you some recommendations. So, Bob, why don't you comment on this one, and then we'll move on to the final category. Anything that you want to state here?
I don't think so. I've gotten really fond of. I'm a busy professional, right? Running around a lot. And somewhere along the line, I discovered that Seeds of Change has a pre-cooked brown rice that comes in a packet, and all you have to do is put it in the skillet, add a tablespoon of water, and you're done. And I have to say it's changed my life. I mean, for years I cooked my own brown rice, and every week I would be very diligent, but I've just gotten so busy. Sometimes I come home and I need 5 minutes to make a meal. And that is really, that particular product has changed my life because now I'm back to eating a lot more brown rice.
Can you repeat the name of the product again so that everybody has it?
It's Seeds of Change.
Seeds of Change.
Yeah, and it's pre-cooked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it right now, looking at the packet right now.
Okay.
Certified organic brown basmati rice.
Okay, very good. Mm-hmm.
And doesn't have any junk in it. It's very clean.
Right.
And it comes in a little packet, so you literally just tear off the top and heat it up. That's all you have to do. Add a little bit of water and heat it up. Now there are other. Costco has these other brown rice products that are pre-cooked, but I found them dry and chewy. This is very moist.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite yummy. So for people that tell me I just don't have time to cook whole grains, this is what I recommend for them.
So, Bob, you mentioned rice, and that's been a hot topic on the Facebook page. People have had questions about heavy metal toxicity, i.e., I would think arsenic and rice. Do we need to be thinking about that? What's your take on that, and also the rice protein powders?
Yeah, we do. I mean, the better nutraceutical companies have their rice products checked, tested for heavy metals. The biggest problem is that rice is often grown on fields where tobacco was grown before. You know, and they've sprayed the tobacco with arsenical pesticides.
Wow.
So that stays in the soil, and then the rice will soak it up, and it will concentrate. And I think other heavy metals that have appeared in rice are cadmium, and maybe it seems like I've read about lead contamination of rice as well. So, you know, it's very important that you check with the manufacturer. Seeds to Change has a very good reputation. I know that a while back was Consumer Reports did a test of a lot of different brands of rice, and it was all over the map. So it really depended on where the rice was grown.
Right. Okay. And now tell me, one of the questions on the page, and even now we're getting right now real time, is what are some of the good, whether maybe rice protein powders or just protein powders in general, since we're kind of talking about rice protein. Do you both have any favorites? You can mention brands. It's okay. We're not advocating a certain type of supplement, but you personally can speak to things that you like. So do you both just want to quickly chime in on that, and then we're going to go to the next slide?
Nativa has an organic rice non-GMO protein powder that has nothing else in it. It's just rice protein. And so you can doctor that up in any way you want.
And you can buy that at a health food store, right, Barb?
Yes. Yep, Nutiva.
Perfect. Bob, how about for you?
Yeah, I can't say that I use more of the rice pea combinations. You know, which I think are fine. I've had people tell me, well, how do you know you can digest the pea? But I haven't really had complaints from clients about using that. So, you know, there's a number of these rice pea proteins out on the market.
Okay, wonderful. All right, now the last category here is beverages, and there were a lot of questions and comments and emotion flying on this one. So people were wondering, what are they going to do without their coffee? So what we have on here are what they can choose
no way
from,
around
right?
it.
I think that, yeah, it's gotten better, but initially I was feeling the withdrawal just virtually through the page. So one of the things that we have on here, and people had questions about, is we list that it's green tea, that's a part of the beverages. But what we really mean to say here is that decaffeinated teas, preferentially herbal teas, are what we want people to focus on.
Yeah.
Any other guidance from both of you on beverages? And Barb, you're a big coffee drinker, so maybe you can say what you do when you're doing an elimination diet, and what is kind of your patch? I
have one day where I miss my coffee, and then by the next day it's fine because I don't drink caffeinated coffee, so I'm not having any caffeine withdrawal. And it just becomes something that you do, and you miss it. But when you start to feel so much better when you're doing a program like this, all of the foods that you're missing become a little less important. I've started to drink coconut water, unsweetened coconut water. I love the taste of that, and I juice vegetables, and I'll do half of the juice and half of the coconut water, and what a great combination that is. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
Now, what about, I want to get both of your, go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, for years I've, put people on a 3-day cleanse where they just do like a rice pea powder for 3 days and stop the caffeine. And what I found after a few years of doing that is that people would have such a bad withdrawal reaction that it would give them a bad taste for the whole program. So I started getting a little bit more lenient and having them switch over to either black tea. If they're going to do a 3-week program, say have them do black tea for a few days, so they're still getting, pretty good amount of caffeine without all the other stuff that goes with the coffee. Do black tea for a few days and then switch over to green tea and basically say you can drink all the green tea you want and then use that as they taper, so that it's not just this stark drop from lots of caffeine to no caffeine. So I think that it's good that you have green tea on here. I usually recommend matcha, which is more expensive than regular brewed green tea, but it's got a lot more of the phytochemicals in it.
Yeah.
So the organic ceremonial grade matcha, I think, is the way to go.
Okay. Now,
Herbal tea. I'm sorry. Herbal tea really needs to be on this list.
Yeah, it sure does. And let's talk about that for a second. The question has come in to me for us to answer. What types of herbal teas do we recommend? So, you know, there's mint, there's chamomile, there's licorice. Any that both of you would like to chime into that mix?
I think hibiscus is awesome.
Oh, that's a good one. And rooibos, right?
Yeah,
for those,
hibiscus and
those
rooibos.
in South Africa.
Hibiscus is, there's studies showing that hibiscus tea can lower blood pressure and prevent recurrent urinary infections in women.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So what is that? Red Zinger. Turns out to be good for you.
Yep. Wonderful. Barb, how about for you, herbal teas that you like?
I don't like herbal tea. I'm such a coffee nut.
That's right. You don't even like green tea at all.
Oh, no. I put green tea in my smoothie in the morning because I can't taste it then. I'll drink a Good Earth has a spicy tea that's pretty good, and I'll drink some licorice tea, but basically I'm not fond of tea.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's a reality for many people that are on this program, perhaps. So you've given some other options. Now, one of the forms of tea that keeps coming up, people really like this tea, is yerba mate. And yerba mate or any caffeinated tea, we have said that would not fit within this food plan because it has caffeine, just like green tea. So if you do green tea, it should be decaffeinated during the food plan. What Bob was speaking to is before you would actually dive into this, you could go from coffee to black tea, green tea, and, you know, continue in that way. But then for this program, we want you to be on decaffeinated beverages of various types. Now, one other question that's coming forth that I did put a response on Facebook today, but perhaps let's talk about it because maybe, Bob, you have a different view on this. And I'm just going from the science, what I know. Some questions are coming up around carrageenan in the various milk alternatives. What's your take on avoiding carrageenan? Are you concerned?
Well, I know there's low molecular weight and high molecular weight. And, you know, people seem to think that, and I can't remember which one is bad, but I think one of them is bad for you and one of them is maybe not proven to be bad for you.
Right, the polygenin versus the carrageenan.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that being said, the tide seems to be turning against it. I think there's, you know, big public concern. There are a couple of researchers who really think all forms of it, no matter what the molecular weight is, are bad for you. So I think certainly for an elimination diet, taking out all sources of it is reasonable.
Yeah. You know, I just happened to find a paper because when the question was asked, I thought, well, let me just make sure I've got my pulse on the most latest research that's out there. So I noticed that there was a publication released in 2013 showing that carrageenan, when given nasally, was shown to be antiviral. So I just thought that that was interesting that it's even being used medicinally. And just so people know, carrageenan is from sea plants. There are various seaweeds and such that this can be derived from. But it doesn't mean that people can't react to it. You know, there are things that we would consider healthy that people would have a reaction to. So if you know that you have a sensitivity or maybe are concerned about inflammation, and if that's concerning to you, then definitely by all means do omit it. But yeah, I think that the jury is still out. There's really a lot of mixed review on it at this time. Okay, so the only other question I'm seeing here, I think there's a lot of concern about rice. We're getting a number of questions about rice in general, concerns about the heavy metals, which I think that we've addressed. And then on meat, I think that, again, some questions there. And so I think that, you know, we can address that again on the Facebook page. But again, the takeaway there, according to this food plan, we do not have beef on this plan. And it's because when we were putting this program together, do you remember this, Barb, when we had the discussion with the larger team around beef? Remember, we had some people that were very strong about seeing reactions in their patients with beef and really feeling like even if we did have grass-fed beef, that's harder to come by. and if people can't get that, then it might be an issue. So
Yes.
we have decided just to make it cleaner, just to take beef off.
Right.
Okay.
So when you say grass-fed, but it says grass-fed meat on the guide, so are you meaning some other meat besides beef?
So what we had was all wild game, so buffalo, elk, lamb, and venison. So that was listed, but beef, i.e. cow, was not.
Okay.
Okay. So for this program in particular, so I think that there was some confusion about that in our discussion. So I just wanted to clarify that. And again,
when we first did the elimination diet in the FMRC many years ago, we weren't sure what was best to do. So we used our patients as a guide and saw what foods people reacted to. And for example, we had all citrus fruits were eliminated initially, and no one ever reacted to anything but occasional oranges. So we kept oranges off. And we had eliminated strawberries, but we saw very few people allergic to strawberries.
Right.
And so that's how a lot of this was developed.
Yeah, exactly. It's really based on clinical experience. So the last question before we close is people are asking about yeast. So I'm assuming that this is baker's yeast, brewer's yeast. I'm assuming it's brewer's yeast. Let's talk about brewer's yeast anyway. So what's both of your take on brewer's yeast on the elimination diet? Now, it's not on our food plan, so this is one of those specialty things that we're just getting a question about.
I certainly talk to people about mold allergies, and if there's even a slight hint of mold allergies, then I would take all yeast off. But
yes,
yep,
I agree.
Okay, that solves that one. Okay, you two, I really want to thank you. Before we close for the evening, I'd like for both of you to give your most inspirational pitch about following this 21-day detox challenge. What would you say if you were seeing each of these individuals in person to really give them that inspiration to go forward and do their best? Bob, you first, and then Barb.
Just in a nutshell, I would tell people this would change your life. That,
wow.
When you get to the other side, that you may find it's a challenge in the beginning, but when you get to the other side, you will feel different, and in a good way.
Excellent. I love it. Okay, Barb, what about you?
I would say similarly, but I would add the fact that it's hard to believe how much better you can feel until you've done a dietary program like this. It's not easy in the beginning. You'll have feelings of withdrawal and wishing maybe that you weren't doing it. And after a few days, that will go away, and then you'll start to feel better, and you'll be amazed at what opens up for you.
Yep, so true. So true. So stay on the course, everybody. This is so phenomenal. And to think that we've got about 3,000 people doing this detox, isn't that just remarkable to think?
I'm overwhelmed, yes.
I'm overwhelmed too, because probably it's even more than 3,000, because when we do it in a family, then our family starts to do it. So probably multiply that times maybe a factor of 1.5 or something. So yes. We're really impacting a nice sliver of the population, and hopefully all of you will spread the word, get people doing the elimination diet and helping to remove their food triggers. Thank you both. You have been a pleasure. You are two of my favorite people within the functional medicine community. I really appreciate you both making the time.
It was an honor.
Yes, it was great.
And next week, we're going to have Dr. Rick Mayfield, and we're going to focus on phytonutrients and color and give you lots of tips and ways, and just to emphasize getting the variety of fruits and vegetables in your diet and some of the things that you can do. So thank you, everybody. Really great to have you here as part of this journey with us. So thanks, and continue to ask your questions on the Facebook page. We're there for you. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
Bye.